All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Morgan, and I'm an event coordinator at Politics and Prose. And I'd like to welcome you all to PNP Live. A few housekeeping items before we begin. Soon, I will drop a link in the chat for where you can purchase Miseducated, a memoir, and Long Division straight from PNP's website, and a reminder that we're offering shipping on all orders. You can ask our speakers a question by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And we'll try to get to as many of those questions as we can toward the end of the program, but we apologize in advance if we don't have time to address your question. Also, there are auto captions for this event by hitting the live caption button at the bottom of your screen. Let's introduce tonight's guest. Brandon P. Fleming is the assistant coach of debate at Harvard University and the founder of the nationally acclaimed Harvard Diversity Project. In 2020, Fleming was recognized by Forbes on their 30 under 30 list and by The Root as one of The Root's 100 most influential African Americans in 2020. Kiese Laymon, born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi, is the author of the novel Long Division, the memoir Heavy, and the essay collection How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others in America, and the recipient of the 2021 Radcliffe Fellowship at Harvard. Please give our guests a virtual round of applause.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Politics and Prose, for being a site that, you always can count on to bring the best of people and books. Brandon, I am ecstatic. I feel like, I literally feel like, I know we all feel like we quote unquote lost the year just in terms of time and temporality, but I feel like we were just talking on the phone about this book, man, that was going to be, and now it's here.
Yeah.
How you feel?
Yeah. We here, man. I'm excited, but I know how you are. I know you get going. So before you even get going, I just gotta stop you for a second. Because my brother, I gotta give you your flowers, I gotta give you your flowers while you're here. And just talk about for a minute, what you have meant to me, because I think that's really important, especially as we get in this conversation, man. Around the time when we first talked, it was right when I first entered the MFA program at UGA. And I need you to understand what you did for me, brother, because my first introduction to you was through Heavy. And that was right as I was beginning to write my memoir. And I gotta say, brother, you freed me in so many different ways, because what you did in that book and what you did in Long Division, I didn't know we were allowed to do. Like I'm just gonna keep it real with you, because I mean, for me, being an English major, where we studied, British literature, and your Flannery O'Connors, your Ernest Hemingways, and all of that. You showed me that we were allowed to be present in prose, and what I mean is our culture, in the ways that we celebrate our culture, and our language and our dialect, and all the nuances of Black culture that I didn't know could be present and still be respected. You know what I'm saying? And like, because we look at, because we have the tendency to have this appreciation for historical literature, particularly from the South, but as far as your Zoras and all of that, and what they do with language, but present day, something that's culturally relevant today, and what you're doing in this space. I know a lot of people, and I know I'm going on. Just give me my moment, yo.
Do you, bro?
I know a lot of people, man. Talk about this book and your writing, and how they see, Baldwin, and how they see Tony, and how they see, Zora, and all. Like, yo, I think what you've done, and what you represent, bro, is I see newness in your writing. So like, I don't even compare you to anyone else, because I think what you've done, man, is a new metric of comparison. That people are going to compare themselves to your vibes, bro. You know what I'm saying? And I just, I just gotta say, as I was writing my memoir, I appreciate you freeing me in that way and giving me permission to exist as my whole authentic self in this space. I just had to get that off my chest.
Oh, man. Let me, since you tossing it to me, let's riff on newness. Because I was trying to think of the point of entry for me for Miseducated, and I think I want to start with basketball, because you one of them brothers who you can consider yourself a hooper if you someone like me until you run up on a real hooper. You know what I'm saying? And for me, that person was Othello Harrington when I was young, 10th grade. I thought I was going to the league at D1, and then Othello shoot up like 5 inches and become the best sophomore in the country. But when we were talking the first time, fam, what I really heard was this commitment you had to newness and ingenuity via The Rock. Yeah. And so, and that is new. And I'm gonna just be honest with you. I have met people who ball, who play ball, or legit ballers. And sometimes I find that the more innovative the baller, sometimes the more stagnant or normal or traditional the pros. And so when we talked, and we were talking about balling for real, like we're talking about how you got hurt, we're talking about the calves, we're talking about the pull-ups, we're talking about the hezzies. I'm interested if you can talk for a minute about the differences for you between your performance on the court. You talk about this in Miseducated a bit. Your performance on the court, which I thought was also, we're also always chasing someone we can't catch and ball, but there's always, you got to be fresh and original and new. And I wonder if your desire to be fresh and original and new on the court is anything like your desire to be fresh and original and new in the actual text.
Bro, here's the thing. I wish, and I think I talked about this in the book, I wish scholars were trained like athletes.
Talk about it.
You know what I'm saying? Because through athletics taught me how to be an academic. Mm-hmm. Because I understand scholarship, just like being a true athlete is not just something you do, it's something you are. There's a difference between practicing something and then making something a lifestyle to it's like, yo, like we do this, you know what I'm saying? And part of that, or most of that, what's central to that is discipline, yo. You know what I'm saying? So it's what you talk about with revision. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about the same things, bro, because whether we're talking about athletics or whether we're talking about academics, there's a reason why we refer to it as higher level disciplines, because discipline is at the center of this work, man. You know what I'm saying? And for me, I learned revision as a hooper. You know what I'm saying? And
talk about
that. Yo. You know what I'm saying? Like learning how to really hone in on my craft and perfect self, understanding my strengths, understanding my weaknesses, understanding how to compensate, understanding how to study the game in the same way that the best writers are the best readers. You know what I'm saying? And so it's the same thing with hooping, bro. I took all that entire skill set and I just transferred it over here, you know what I'm saying? And so that's how I learned how to navigate this space, bro.
Oh, I've got chills right now, fam.
But what about for you, yo? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like what did you take from athletics into this space?
The thing that I took most, and it's weird, like I've been writing now for I've been writing for public consumption for about 31 years, which is crazy, right? But the thing that I took from basketball most specifically was the elation and the discipline in making something. And I think we don't use that verb enough, make. Like you made Miseducated. You didn't just write it. Like you made it. You collaborated with editors, and we all collaborate with editors, but you made it. And as a young person, one of the only things I was encouraged to make was a layup. You know what I'm saying? It was a jumper. Right? But when I say that, I think people be like, oh, that's so sad. But we were trying to make the flyest fucking jumper in the world. We was trying to make the illest, we was trying to do like the motherfucking, like putting the jelly on it. You know what I mean? Like one hand, we tried to, back in the day, bro, when the backboard used to be lower, we didn't just want to make a layup. We wanted to slap the glass with one or two hands and whatnot. And so I'm thinking a lot about what it means to make, and especially in Miseducated, when you don't simply make layups and then make art and then make your way to Harvard, you make another community within a community that already existed. And I'm wondering if you can talk about the and I'm going to jump ahead for a second, but I wonder if you can talk about that point when you were like, okay, I can help make this team at Harvard something that it probably never thought that it could be made into. Can we talk about that?
Yeah. And I want to just kind of just piggybacking off of that, and I'll kind of transition into answering your question and talking about what it means to make. We can't do that without talking about the process of making, because it is a process, and I just want to I just want to, if I can, just talk about something you referenced in the book, and then I'll answer that question. But it was like there were moments in this book where I just like I was breathless, because like, I know I love a book when I read something and I got to set it down. And I just got to think, like I just got to let it marinate and digest. And it was when Shalala was talking about long division. You know what I'm saying? And what that meant, and she said they never teach you, like, to linger in the small steps. They just tell you that you got to master the small steps if you want to get to the big answer. But I wish we could really pause at each step in long division and talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and in that, I get it's about the process, And so what Miseducated is, it was my process. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of times in my life, I'm gonna be honest with you, like I was really angry with God for a long time, because all that shit I went through, like I used to ask myself, did it really take all of that? You know what I'm saying? Like, did I really have to go through all that mess that nearly broke me and nearly killed me, And the answer was yes. It did take all of that, because that was a part of my process that I would then take and turn into a curriculum to help build other people, to help build scholars, you know what I'm saying? And so for that reason, I'm grateful for that, man. I'm grateful for all those small steps that Shalala was talking about in that moment, man, because that those small steps not only created me, but it created this system that I'm able to now utilize in order to make the world a better place. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what it represents.
And the making, right? Like the in the making, because I want to come back to that. I want to come back to what the audacity that it takes to make what you made in Cambridge. But before we get there, I mean, I really need to talk to you about, like, this is something I should have talked to you about first before we got on camera. But in making a book like this, you also have to, you're also making characters, right? Because we don't know these people, even though it's fiction, even though it's nonfiction, you're making people for us. And I'm gonna call those people characters just because I think all of us are characters. When we were talking initially about the making of this book, you were concerned about what ethically it would mean to make characters out of people who actually exist, and how should you deal with that? Like, how do you show the good, the bad, and the ugly of a person who doesn't want their ugly shown? And ultimately, like, you rename and you move character and you move names around and blah, 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 blah. But you also, fam, like, you also show so much patience and actually like an attention to language that makes these characters, all of them, even the ones that I feel like is, do despicable shit, seem like people that are worthy of love, care. But can we talk about that? Can we talk about the process of making characters and humans in your life who might not have been so good to you into characters that, people are going to consume, read, care for ethically? I guess what I'm asking is, what kind of ethic goes into the making or the rendering of a person in Miseducated who might not have been so great to you?
You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. The quick answer to that question is I don't know. But let me tell you what was on my mind.
Okay.
With each character that we create or depict, they're so multidimensional, bro. But we don't. It feels unfair because we don't get to reveal all of the dimensions of who they are. We just get to reveal the dimensions of who they are that fit within the narrative arc. And sometimes that doesn't feel fair.
Right.
Because like with my mother, you know what I'm saying? I wanted we cut a whole chapter. I don't know if you got that version or not. We cut a whole chapter out of the book that was specifically about my mother, because I felt like the way I depicted my mother wasn't fair. Was it honest? Yes, but just because it's honest doesn't mean it was fair. Because, and the reason why is because there was more to the story. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I was concerned with people having empathy for those people. Like even with with my stepfather and how fucked up of an individual
Right.
he was. What I didn't get to tell the part of the story, about how he grew up in foster care and how he was abused and all the terrible things that happened to him. And the reason why I think that's important sometimes is because it gives us the bigger picture in which we're able, it reveals this cycle in which we realize that hurt people tend to hurt other people.
Right.
And what I really want people to see, the only thing I could have control over is the dimensions of myself that I expose, which I was very intentional about this not being like a story of a hero, but I wanted people to see those parts of me that are very grim, you know what I'm saying? And the reason why is because I wanted people to see that when we're dealing with people who are victims, that victims can either become villains or they can become heroes. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? That when we look at people who are out here shooting shit up, a lot of times we talk about what people are doing, but we don't talk about the why.
Yeah.
And I wish I had more time to deal with the why. You know what I'm saying? But I would kind of turn that question back on you because I'm curious about how you approach the ethical development of characters in your novel.
Yeah, like you, fam, I have to write it. I have to write it all before I decide what I want to show to people.
Yeah,
And that goes back to what we were talking about practice. I think once you
Yo, you
understand,
told me that too. You told
yeah,
me that in the beginning, and I appreciated that, yo,
yeah,
because
and you did
you
it.
told me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, but I just wanted to. You told me in the beginning, man. It was some of the most valuable advice you've given me. You was like, yo, this first draft, write that shit for you. Write that shit for you, and that, yo, man, that was game changing for me, brother. I just had to stick
And
that pin
even
in there.
looking at the differences, bro, between the one that I first read and the final, I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
I just was like, I hear you what you're saying about narrative constraint, but also sometimes we have to use narrative constraint to be ethically sound, right? Like sometimes
mm,
as you're saying, sometimes we don't need. Sometimes, I mean, this is what we all hear growing up in the South. Everything ain't for everybody's eyes, you know. But sometimes I think we can allow that to
facts.
stop us from writing what we need to write. And that's what I was worried
Yeah,
about a little bit when we were talking before. I was like, fam, yeah, I know you think you know where this story's going, but try to write it anyway, because you're gonna have to pause along the way. You're gonna have to linger along the way. And for me, when I'm thinking about heavy, I'm thinking about long division, especially heavy. Like I had the heavy I wrote for my mama and me is a book that nobody else in the world will ever see. And then I have to perform a different kind of heavy for the world, and I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm
yeah,
okay. I'm okay with that. Actually, I think that's ethically sound. But if you don't believe that writing is practice, you're going to think everything you write is good and everything you write deserves to be seen. And you can't really concern yourself with the ethics of whether or not it should be seen by other people. So that's where I am with that.
yeah. Nah, that's real, bro. There was one thing. Honestly, yo, like in long division, I could just spend so much time just dealing with lines.
Right.
These gems that you drop, and there's one in particular. It was on page 19 where you said, some books can change how we see ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and everything else in the world. And,
That's
and
right.
so, I really, just what I'm curious about is how does that apply to long division? What did it help you see about yourself, and what is it about the world that you wanted? What do you want people to see differently, yo? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is it that you really wanted
Themselves,
people
us,
to know
themselves.
differently?
I
Yeah.
want, that line you read from Shalea Crump, like, that's sort of a cheating passage because that's the book, like, I think about what you did in Miseducated and how seldom there seem to be people, grown people, to not just nurture you, but to talk to you and ask you why you made decisions you made. And that's what I'm trying to put forth in long division. We got these kids that are carrying weights that they don't even understand we carrying. And
Mm.
then adults sometimes are like, you misrepresenting the race when you do it like that. You need to get some religion if you're doing it like that. You're gonna fuck up your life if you're doing it like that. But in my experience, I never had any adult ask me, why are you doing what you're doing? Not
Yeah,
why, like
that's
why.
it.
And
That's
that's what
it.
your book does, fam. Like that's what your book made me understand and remember is that is that like there's a lot of ways to love children, but if you don't immerse yourself in trying to figure out who the fuck the child is you're trying to discipline or go another way, I'm not sure that we're actually doing anything for the child. I think we're doing something for some image of ourselves that we want to be. And I'm just, and as someone who oversees or not oversees, that's a bad verb, but as someone who works with young people, I was totally taken by this idea of you as an educator who was like very, very, very interested in who the people were in front of you. But I don't know if you can even do that work unless you do the work in Miseducated. That's my conundrum. Do we have to do the work in Miseducated to be worthy teachers and scholars? Because most of us don't have the will to do a book like Miseducated. Do you know?
Yeah. But when we talk about what it means to be worthy teachers, man, all of us are teachers. Satoyan's grandmother was a
Right.
teacher. You know what I'm saying? Your mother in heavy was a
Yeah.
teacher.
Yeah.
I think the challenge, my mother, my stepfather, all they were teachers, and so we have to ask ourselves not just, we give them grace in the places where they fell short,
Right.
but then if we're trying to understand it, the truth is, man, so many of us are trying to love from a place of grief. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we see. Like, it's so much love coming from, what city's grandmother is saying, but there's so much grief coming from that same place. You know what I'm saying? And so we got to figure out how to do that work of healing first, before we try to love somebody. Because I think a lot of times where we fall short in loving people is our own shortcomings when it came from where people tried to love us. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
right.
And that's what I realized about my own father. You know what I'm saying? Like, I talk about the areas where it was too challenging for him to support me and for him to love me because of who I became.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, in the beginning, he was the best father ever.
Yeah.
But then when my image and my identity started to seem like the antithesis of his own,
Yes.
all he knew was to disown me. Why? Because his father,
Right.
wanted him to go down a particular path, and he didn't go down that path. And so what he received from his father, he gave me. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And that was grief, yo. That
Right.
was grief. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yes. And what I love that you do, Brandon, is like you don't let the informal learning ways that impact us, I think actually as much or more than the formal learning ways, you don't let that informal learning way off the hook. You're as critical
Yeah.
of the informal ways you're taught in Miseducated
Yeah.
as you are of the formal ways you're educated. And that to
Yeah.
me is the ill shit. I mean, that there's a lot of things that are ill in this book, but that move to go back to what you said earlier is what makes this book new to me. Because it could have been so easy to just talk about the ways you have been and harmfully educated in classrooms, but then look outside the space and be like, but this is where I found it all. And and there's some of that. But can you talk for a second about the differences between the formal ways you're educated in the classroom, the informal ways, and why you thought it necessary to honestly critique both?
Yeah, this story, whether we're talking about my personal journey, whether we're talking about my academic journey or my professional journey as pertains to pedagogy, um, it's about the power of equity and,
Mhm.
and what it means. And the way I define educational equity is our ability to meet people where they are.
Mhm.
That's where we struggle.
Mhm.
And it's because so often, bro, we accuse young people of being disinterested. Nah, young people
Right.
ain't disinterested.
Duh.
Young people are disengaged.
Right.
There's a difference.
Right.
Because it's easier for us to revert to saying young people are disinterested, because then we negate our responsibility to engage them. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? But when we say that they're disengaged, we acknowledge and accept the part that we have a responsibility to take our agenda and marry it with their interests.
Yes.
And that's what I had to learn. You know what I'm saying? It ain't about them just caring about what we care about. It's about us saying, these are the things of important. Now, how do I make this relevant to you? That's culturally relevant teaching. You
Yes.
know what I'm saying? And so we got to figure out a way. And that's not limited to education. What industry can thrive or survive without expecting them to go to their clients and meet them where they are. You know what I'm saying? It's not possible. And so, that's the work we gotta learn how to do, man. And part of it is about skill. But then part of it is about hard work too, man. Nowadays we're talking about the plight of American education, and I'm gonna be 100 with you, bro. We as teachers in particular, we try to make it about policy so much, and it ain't all about policy, man. I think it's about passion. I think it's a passion issue. I think it's a heart issue, because what we've done is we've created this climate and culture where teachers love their subject more than they love their students. You know what I'm saying? Like to where English teachers sign up to teach English because they love books, not because they love kids. It's a love issue, bro. It's a heart issue. And at the end of the day, we see we see the results there, yo. You know what I'm saying? But I wanted to ask you one thing, if that's okay, man. I wanted to deal with something, and it's the dynamic between City and what's his name? LeVar, was that his name?
Lavander.
Lavander, yeah. And because it made me think so much, man, about the conversation about masculinity.
Yeah.
If we could talk about that for a second. Because I struggled with that growing up, and I even see, I was having a conversation with someone earlier about just that the dynamic between male relationships and how close and vulnerable we're allowed to be with each other. And I was reading this article not too long ago that described relationships between men versus relationships between women. And it said women relationships tend to be face to face, whereas relationships with men tend to be shoulder to shoulder, which means we're willing to do things together, but we're not willing to be vulnerable with each other, and I just want to talk about what that does to us, yo. You know what I'm saying? Because I think, as we're talking about love, how much harder does that make it for us to learn how to love when there's an entire emotional dynamic about who we are that we have to suppress. And that's what I saw in City, yo. Like the conflict that you created there was so profound, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, and I just want to talk about that dynamic if we can.
I want to talk about it, and I would love to locate some of the conversation in the sex and death threats chapter, if that's okay. But I've never thought about this before, but I think one of the reasons that the people I grew up with and me loved sports, one of the many reasons, was because it gave us permission to actually look each other in the eye, to actually like do more than just bump shoulders. Even I mean, whether I was playing football, whether I was playing basketball, and those are two different kinds of sports that necessitate two different kinds of touch. But fam, that what I'm saying is, like, what happens if we as cisgendered men who purport to be straight talk about how good playing ball felt, not just making baskets, but having your nigga come up and grab you and be like, yeah, man, like hug you by your neck where you can't be let go. There's more than a love in that. And for me, the thing was, I could only find that in sports, or if we were laughing at each other about some shit, that happened in the classroom. But even then, it was a distance. Or if we were talking about hip hop or something, but we needed these, like, we could not just be like, I couldn't be like, man, Lathan, I'm feeling sad as hell, bro. Can you hug me? You know what I'm saying? Like that's a sentence we never said to each other. Like, I'm sad. Can you hug me? Instead, it was like, man, ain't shit to do. You want to go play some ball? And that was where we could hug. You know what I'm saying? So we could go around the way to get my dap up and get my hug, when I could just be like, Lathan, man, motherfucker, you want to hug my neck? And so, like, I'm asking, part of long division, as you said, is lingering in the steps. But what happens if we linger in the steps, not just about like terror, but also linger in like pleasure? Like, what brings us pleasure? And yeah, we can talk about sex and sexuality, but I think even before we talk about that, we need to have honest conversations about what makes us feel good as young people and older people. And without those conversations, I just don't know what we're doing. But I also found a different way to think about that in your book, of course, but in the sex and death threats section, I just kept thinking about, this man has put this shit out in a book, and some months from now, he's going to have to stand in front of a class who likely read this book.
Yo,
Can we talk also about looking people in the eye and masculinity and whatnot, but I also think part of masculinity is not doing what you did, which is to show people your blind spots, show people your frailty, and then stand up in front of the class and believe and say, among other things, I think I have something important to say to you. Can we talk about that?
you know what? When people ask all the time, what makes me and my students close? You know what young people love more than anything that we as adults don't get?
What?
Authenticity. Authenticity. A lot of times, young people feel like teachers ain't humans. You know what I'm saying? And it creates this impasse. We're not able to connect. Like, think about how weird it was to see your teacher at the grocery store. The
Whoa!
fuck? Why?
Yo.
Why? You know what I'm saying?
That shit blew my mind.
Like, it's crazy, right?
I'm like, why that motherfucker shopping? What
you eat?
Trying to eat? The fuck?
Hey, but why, And it's like there's it limits our ability to connect as human, and that's what I talk about. We got to put their humanity before their education. We got to connect as people before we connect as academics, because learning is experiential. Like, you can't negate your humanity in this process of learning, because we are two people. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, man, it honestly, what my kids appreciate about me the most is that I don't try to pretend that I didn't do the shit that they thinking about.
Right.
I don't try to pretend that I ain't feel the shit that they feeling. You know what I'm saying? So I don't tell my kids shit like, yo, don't be smoking no weed.
Yeah.
What the fuck? You think they're not gonna do it just because I said don't do it?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't tell them don't be having no sex. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, you know what? Okay, you feeling, and that's why they don't want to talk to our asses, bro.
Yeah.
That's why we got young people out here fending for themselves because they don't have an adult in their lives who's willing to be authentic and say, yo, what you're feeling is normal. And so what happens is we make them feel like they're disgusting or that they're different. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't help them understand that they're normal, and then give them an opportunity to work through those things and to become wise about it. You know what I'm saying?
I do know.
And so yeah, that's the process of learning, man, that we got to get back to. And I think I'm able to achieve that simply through authenticity. And so, yeah, it's like, here are the places that I've been in this book, and my kids are going to see that, but I'll offer it as a compass for the places that they don't have to go. For me to be like, yo, you could do that if you want. Here's how it played out for me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so, the ball's in your court, but I'm going to tell you how this played out for me. And then you make your own decision, but you won't make this decision unlearned. You know what I'm saying?
I want to first encourage y'all to put questions if you have in the chat. But I want to read a passage and from Miseducated. And I want to ask you what and how you thought about standing in front of a class with this passage being in the world.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm really asking how this book is going to impact your pedagogy, because that's something I think about a lot with Heavy. All right. So we took risks like this without thinking. Our fix became more important than life itself. Our lust didn't have fatal consequences that time, but the likelihood was increasing. We had basketball practice after school every day, or at least some iteration of it. If we weren't on the court, we were lifting weights, doing conditioning drills, or watching game films. On rare occasions, coach gave us a break, meaning we were excused after school for the rest and fellowship. One such afternoon, my friends and I waited for our buses near the school's main entrance, where an amalgamation of cliques assembled: the whites, blacks, and Hispanics, and their subsets, student council, athletes, gang members. The varsity basketball and football players claimed the turf by the vending machines. Each day, people knew exactly where to find us, instigating fights, seducing girls who liked our flirting, and annoying girls who didn't. Jocks were obnoxious for no reason. Meat checking is how we enacted masculinity and male bonding. It was a silly game. An example, is it Rashid?
Yeah, Rashid.
Rashid would extend his hand to greet Chad. Then he'd point to the ceiling and say, "What's that?" When Chad looked up, Rashid would deliver a backhanded blow to the nuts as Chad's 6 foot, 200-pound body folded on the ground in a fetal position. We'd all cheer and laugh hysterically, but then people would catch on, and stop falling for it. So we'd have to be innovative. When Rashid would greet Chad, he'd say, "Hey, yo, catch," and toss a water bottle just high enough in the air to send Chad's arms reaching toward the ceiling, leaving a clear path for his gut-wrenching meat check. This pass for brains and creativity in the world. When I got to this section of the book, fam, I was like, this is the teacher that I want to teach all my children. Every child. And then I was like, but I wonder if sections like this make Brandon feel like there's bigger portals of entry and connection with him and the students, or if you felt some sort of like fear from that kind of thing being out there.
You know, I don't think I dealt with fear necessarily. But by the way, you know that what came to mind while I was reading Long Division, you know, that particular section and that type of shit, that type of silly shit we did as boys was kindly paused.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
It's like, yo, like the type of shit we did, yo, like it was like what, like kindly pause, meat checking, you know?
Yes, that's true, man.
But you know what I'm saying, and so I understand that that's how, you know, that's how young boys tend to be, you know what I'm saying. So you can't say certain things without them starting to giggle, and you know, and shit like that, man. And I think it's it's given certain permissions for them to be human, you know what I'm saying, and not scolding them, like I said, for the type of shit that we used to do, you know what I'm saying, and so as far as the way that it affects my my teaching and the way I show up in the classroom, it allows me to be more honest. It allows me to be more honest, and I think so much of the learning experience, bro, is about trust. And one thing I can say, my students trust me, I think, more than any other adult in their life. I'm able to achieve with my students what even their parents can't do. Not only what their other teachers can't do, but what their parents can't do, because of that one element of trust. Trust, bro. And the only way you foster and nurture trust is through authenticity. And so when they see something like that, they say, you know what Mr. Fleming says, we believe. We believe because he's proven that he's willing to be honest with us. And so whereas their parents might tell them not to do something, they're gonna be like, man, you know, fuck out of here. But if I tell them that there's a certain level of belief and trust that is existent only because of my authenticity.
You know, there's a chapter in the book, and it's called Great Good Leader. Is it called Great Leader?
A leader born.
A leader born. A leader born.
Yeah.
And what I felt in there was like, you know, this is the scaffolding for a great leader. And I and leader is a word that I tend to avoid for myself because of the responsibility that comes with it.
Yeah.
But it's something that you take on, right?
Yeah.
But I also wondered how you deal with leading and the role of boundaries in leading when you give so much of yourself, expect so much to be given to you from your students. How do you deal with this thing we call boundaries? This is something I was always asked as a young professor. And when Heavy came out, I was asked a lot, but I've never read somebody's book. And I actually wondered, like, yo, how does this person deal with boundaries? Because in some way, when you read this book, it feels porous. It feels like you are an open book. It feels like you're like, come, look at me. I'll tell you honestly. And I wonder if there's any space for boundaries and that kind of pedagogy and leadership.
You know, one of my philosophies, man, when it comes to reaching these young people is my job is not to fill their cup. My job is to empty my own.
Right.
You know, and so I feel like that's what I did in this book, and that's what I do, you know, with the kids is I empty myself. I can't say that I thought about maybe all the things that I should have thought about. You know, I'm gonna be honest about that.
Right.
You know, I can't sit here and be like, you know, while I was writing this book, I was thinking about boundaries. And honestly, I wasn't. Maybe I should have. You know, there are people who say yo, I wouldn't have did that. You know, and like I wouldn't have aired, you know, all of that information. You know, and it's the price I'm willing to pay, bro. I mean, I think since simple as that there's no other way for me to put it. It's the price that I'm willing to pay if it means that somebody can be free. Somebody here's the thing, bro. We will never heal from the things that we are too afraid to confront.
That's it.
And I'm fucking sick and tired, yo, of watching my community, suffer so much because so much shit is taboo. And you talk about that shit, man. And I'm like, yo, what I said in the beginning of this call is real, bro. You gave me the courage to talk about that shit.
Right.
I didn't know we could. I didn't know I could talk about that and still be, a university instructor, especially at Harvard. So I didn't know I could talk about that and still do the things that I did. But when I saw you do it, bro, I ain't just like, this ain't just rhetoric, bro. Like, you really freed me of thinking that I had to, that I couldn't show that part of who I am. And I just want to talk about something else in Long Division that spoke to that. And it was something that City was talking about when he said that it seems that there's two versions of us.
Right.
And he was asking, that there seems to be a fiction version of us that lives in our head, and then the real life you. And he was asking, his grandmother, what's the difference between the two of those people? And she said, really, there's no difference, because it's all about the way you use both of them. You can use them, in ways that are just as bad as good. But at the end of the day, you have the power of that. And I was just, I was curious about how you navigate that personally, because one of the other moments that I had with you that was really impactful for me was when you spoke at the UGA residency, and it was virtual. And I specifically talked to one of my professors while you were talking. I texted her, I was like, yo, I wish I could do that. Like, I wish I could be that authentic, yo. You know what I'm saying? Like, the way you show up, the way you talk is consistent, bro. For me, it changes. Like, right now, like, I'm wearing this because I'm talking to you, but if I was in another setting, I'll probably be in a bow tie and a suit. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I hate that person.
Right.
Like, if I can just be real, you know what I'm saying? And like the other day, I was traveling and I got home and forgot that I had to go give a speech. And then, my assistant came in and she's like, you got to be at this place in 30 minutes to give a speech. And I was like, yo, I'm in jeans and Timbs. Like, and it was like, but I had to go and I had to go give that speech in jeans and Timbs. And I felt so uncomfortable, bro. But then I'm asking why?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, why? That's me. That's authentically me. And in fact, that bow tie wearing nigga that everybody see, everyone don't love him.
No.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, like people love what he offers, but they don't love what's underneath, all the tattoos that are underneath, the real person that's underneath. People don't love that person. How do you find the courage to be that person, yo? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you afraid sometimes that people won't love him?
Yeah, fam. They didn't love me when I wore wool suits with vests to teach my first day in college. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think I'm not, I mean, we come from a culture that finds safety in the bow tie, finds safety in the Timbs, finds safety in the tats, finds safety in like the clean shit. But this is where fam, like, you said earlier this phrase, we do this. I'm not confident in a lot of things, bro. I couldn't be as good as I could be at basketball because I was afraid to miss. I was one of the niggas who, like, I shot 88% from the free throw line in college. I shot 54% from the field, and I shot all jumpers. But I was afraid to miss, so I could never fucking get loose. But in this writing shit, this talking in front of people shit, we do this.
Yeah.
We do this. So
bro.
Why? And I'm not, I mean, this is also age. I'm not talking down to you, but I'm not your age anymore. I'm a 46-year-old nigga, bruh. And I'm not gonna wear weird ass clothes so random people can think I'm cleaner than I fucking am, or richer than I am, or like more subservient than I am. I'm gonna wear shit that makes me feel comfortable always. And I might fail at that. That might be something I shouldn't do. Also, when it comes to the page, I'm gonna try to put a similar language together that I've never seen before. And you fail when you do that, but I'm okay failing at this. It's the only thing in my life I'm okay failing at. Only thing in my life I'm okay failing at. And it's probably the only thing in my life I'm good at. But it makes me like, this is what I want to ask you. This is the question I wanted to ask you, brother. I've been trying to kind of build up to. One of the things you do in this book is you take familiar sites, be they middle school basketball, addiction, or Harvard, and you make those familiar sites unfamiliarly familiar to people. Of all of those sites, the addictive sites, the familial, the balling, the middle school shit, the sports shit, like it's the Harvard shit that I'm most interested in how it feels to, in some way, write a different Harvard narrative. We have so many addiction narratives. We have so many sexuality narratives, sex narratives, balling narratives. We have so many like pull themselves up out of bootstraps narratives. But Harvard is a site in and of itself. And I wondered if there was a different kind of fear, trepidation tied to your writing about that, because it's Harvard and it's also a place where you get a check. Can we talk about that?
There's so much I want to talk to you about offline,
Let's do it.
and kind of what makes this challenging is figuring out what I can say here and what I cannot. But I'll say this. One thing that I loved, you know that feeling, whether it was on the court, whether it was on the blacktop, where no one could fucking stop you.
Yeah.
Like even if it was just one game,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, where you feel like, yo, like I'm doing this and no one's gonna stop me.
Right.
That's how I feel doing this work. Except it's not just for me; it's for our people. When I'm no longer in this world, man, I just want people to be able to say one thing, and that is when he made it to Harvard, he came back for us. He came back for us. Like I came back for my people, and that's because I realized that my being there had to be for a reason that was far greater than me, and I showed the world what's possible. What's possible when we level the playing field, because there's so many people out here talking shit, bro, about equitable programs, saying, "Oh, we don't believe in handouts." We pick yourself up by your bootstraps. And all this shit that people say to demean and devalue equitable programs that benefit Black people,
yes,
because they say that they're not equally deserving or qualified.
Yes.
Well, but what we did when three different groups of Black students from Atlanta won that championship, won that tournament against over 400 of the most gifted scholars from all around the world. Bro, I'm talking about countries send their best.
Yes.
To Harvard, kids who have been debating all their lives. You tell me we take these kids out of inner city Atlanta, train them for 1 year and send them to Harvard, and they win consistently 3 years in a row. We showed the world anything that Black people have not achieved is not due to ability. It is only due to access. We have created that same feeling that I used to feel when I was on the blacktop, when I was on the court, that nobody's gonna fucking stop us, bro.
Yes.
Not if we are together. Not if we understand that this journey is not about the upward climb. It's about reaching back and pulling others up when we get there.
Drop that invisible mic, my nigga. Like that's it.
Yeah, man.
That's it.
That's what it's about, brother. Yo, I appreciate, man. Hey, I love you, bro.
Love you.
I really.
You know what? I know you love me, but I know you love us. And that means the world, fam. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, brother.
So we have a couple of questions in the Q&A box, and a lot of them actually speak to questions about vulnerability. I'm going to summarize this question really quickly by Maggie Hermes. Sorry if I'm saying your last name wrong. Do you see the act of writing memoir as a form of healing and self-regulation?
Kiese, you want to take that, or you want me to go for it?
You jump in there.
I'll be honest. I'll answer this very quickly, and I'll pass it to you. People ask me all the time, did this book help heal you? One thing I'm not gonna sit here in front like, oh, I wrote this book, I created this art, and all of a sudden I'm magically healed. The answer is no. And in fact, I think this book helped me realize, ways that I'm fucked up that I didn't even deal with. You know what I'm saying? The writing the book itself is not what brings me healing. What brings me healing is when I learn how it impacted someone else.
Right.
If I learn that it brought someone else healing, if I learn that it helped someone else sing their song and tell their story, that's when it will bring me a sense of healing and resolve, because I think we all have the capacity to take our pain and turn it into something beautiful that we can give back to the world to make somebody else's life better.
I agree. I ain't gonna try to fuck up that answer. That's the answer. That's the answer.
All right. Let's go to another question. This one's from Link. What are some steps that you both would give as advice for the Black community to stop fearing vulnerability in order to thrive even more?
I mean, I'll say briefly, like, I do think that question necessitates like thinking about the questions and what we talk to ourselves about. That might sound corny, but I think that like the questions we ask ourselves have everything to do with like what we ask of other people. And like, you know, I can ask Brandon something today that would be hard for me to ask, partially because I've asked myself and I've come to a point where I don't know what the answer is. So Baldwin always talks about like this idea of like the quake. And I think sometimes we avoid things that make our inside quake, not just because we're afraid of seeing ourselves, but we're afraid of that quake being seen by others. But I think you have to ask yourselves the questions. We have to ask ourselves the questions we do not want to ask, or the questions we cannot find answers to. And when we cannot find those answers, I think sometimes we need to look to the people we love for help. And if those people we love cannot help us, we then need to look to trained professionals for help. But I think it should be in that order.
That's it. That's it.
Okay, so this question is a good one from Reginald. When looking at the title of your memoir, Miseducated, I can't help but think of Carter G. Woodson's Miseducation of the Negro. Do you feel that you've updated, if not revised, the conversation Woodson began in his classic text with your memoir?
I would neither update or revise it. It's timeless. It's too important. I respect it too much. I offered a contemporary perspective. You know, me being a millennial, you know, me obviously growing up much different than Carter G. Woodson. I would consider it more of an adaptation, you know, than a revision or an update. But it was most certainly, you know, my inspiration for the title, because I love Woodson, and I've been impacted by Woodson and the entire Harlem Renaissance movement. So yeah, it was definitely a play on that, but not an update or a revision.
What about Westover's book? What about Educated? We playing with that?
Yeah, you know, I wasn't thinking about educated so much as I was thinking about the miseducation Negro,
Yeah.
but I think it offers it can be a play on that, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Because Tara, she talks about her upbringing was very different, you
Right.
know, from mine. And so maybe consider this the urban version of that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it. I love it.
yeah.
This is a really open-ended question for both of you. What gives you hope? And that's from Mary.
Um, I don't really deal with hope. I sort of deal with faith, and it's hard to talk about faith because sometimes it's something that you don't. I mean, that's what it is. It's something you don't see, right? You have to believe in something you don't see. But my faith comes from something I see, and what I've seen is people bring us here and did not expect us to do anything other than be labor and die. Yet faithfully, our people, though we've lost way too many millions, have still done far more than what we were expected to do. And I have faith that we will continue to do that. That's what my faith is. I don't really deal in hope too much, but I have faith.
Yeah, yeah. I would say, you know, I would also kind of modify that word and not necessarily use hope, but trust. You know, now
Mm-hmm.
I have trust in the next gen. You know, I don't trust when we a lot of what we talking about is power.
Right.
You know, this game of power, and I don't have trust in people in power and adults' ability to change.
Yeah.
I have trust in the next generation to do it the right way,
That's it.
the way that it's supposed to be done. I have trust in our ability to train them to take upon the mantle
Yeah.
and do it the right way.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Yes, indeed.
And I think this will be a good question to end on. What do you both want your readers to gain from reading your work?
I'm gonna be honest and cheat. You know, what Brandon said to start this, which was that he found something new in my work, and I hope that that newness is something that Brandon felt like he didn't need to imitate, but make into his own way. I hope people who read the book feel like whatever life they lead, wherever they live, there's something to make of the parts that they don't want to talk about, of the parts that they would lie and say don't exist. There's art to be made, there's relationships to be made, there's love to be made of those parts. And I hope that people, if they do anything, I hope that they understand, in heavy at least, that's what I want them to take. In long division, I hope they understand that no matter what people tell you, a graduation is supposed to look like, progress is supposed to look like, a novel is supposed to look like, a relationship, don't trust them, especially if it's grown people. Don't trust them, don't trust them, don't trust them. You make that relationship, that novel, that organization, that team, what you and your people need and want, with the understanding that the confines that have come before us are going to be confining. So you got to do something new. That's what I hope people get from long division.
And you do that, bro. You do that because I do believe that the highest function of art is in its ability to be provocative.
Yeah.
That means art should make us do something.
Right.
It should make us do something. And the reason why it takes me so long to read your work is because I can't read your writing without wanting to write. I can't read your writing without wanting to create. So I can't read it without feeling changed. Like it galvanizes, bro. Like it makes me feel like I gotta go do something right now. And so I just want to say it does that. Um, for me, what I want people to see, um, I traveled to some very dark places in order to show people how lost I was.
Mm.
And the reason why I did that is because I want the world to see that nobody is beyond the reach of redemption.
Mm.
And so the next time you see someone on the corner, the next time you see someone thugged out, in all their gang attire and all that, my earnest hope and prayer is that you will look beyond what people perceive as a problem, and you'll see their potential to change the world. And my hope is that when you see that person, you remember my story.
Well, this is a really good conversation that you both gave us. On the behalf of Politics and Prose, I want to thank you all for both being here tonight. You could have been somewhere else, but you decided to do this event with us. Thank you for that. Also like to thank our audience for attending and always showing up here for our events as well, and to remind you to purchase your copy of Miseducated and Long Division from Politics and Prose. Your support makes it possible for us to do events like this. And I want to thank you all for being here and to have a good night.
Thank you for being so kind to our books too,
Much
man.
love.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you deeply. Thank you.
Thank you so much. See y'all soon.
Peace.